Alright guys, welcome to your last installment of flipped videos for this unit. And this is a really simple topic. It's just a lot of memorizing and, oh, alright, that makes sense. Voter requirements and trends. What makes someone eligible to vote? What do they need to do in order to register to vote? Who typically votes? And the people that don't vote, what are the reasons? You need to have these notes in your digital civics notebook, so even if you write them down, they need to be transferred over or do a dual screen type situation. Here we go. So, qualifications to register to vote in Virginia. Each state has its own has its own requirements to vote. Because you can vote in a national election, but the federal government and the Constitution says each state handles their own elections. And that makes sense, because if you think about to 7th grade, different people were allowed to vote in different states. Women were allowed to vote in the Midwest long before they were allowed to vote in, let's say, southern countries.
Pizza, please call the main office.
Apparently a club ordered Domino's Pizza. It also explains why northern states allowed their slaves to vote long before the South did. So in Virginia, these are the requirements. You must be a citizen of the United States. This can be a natural-born citizen or a native-born citizen or a naturalized citizen. So you could have been born here, born in one of our territories, or immigrated here and you've gained official U.S. citizenship status through the immigration process. You must be a resident of Virginia and the city or county that you want to vote in. So I have to be a resident of Virginia in order to vote in Virginia. And I have to be 18 years old by election day. So this year election day is November 8th. So you need to be 18 by November 8th. So for you guys, when you're looking at when can you vote in the 2020 election, we have to look at 4 years from now. And if you are going to be 18 years old by November 10th, 2020. Election day in 2020 will be November 10th. So do you meet that qualification? If your birthday is November 11th, 2020, you're going to have to wait until the 2024 election to vote for the president, but you could still vote for the annual elections that come up. And only citizens who register to vote in primaries and general elections. So if you are a citizen that doesn't register to vote in Virginia, you cannot vote for the primaries and general elections in Virginia. Cool? All right. So how do I register to vote? So this screen told me if I'm eligible, so now how do I actually register to vote? You still have an in-person option at the registrar's office, at the courthouse, at the DMV, and other designated sites. The public library has a form. Your government teacher in high school might have you fill out a voting registration form. That's how I register to vote, is my high school government teacher. There's a mail-in application that you can pick up at any of those above places, or there's now an online system. The deadline to close is 22 days before the election. So if I decided, oh my goodness, I want to vote for Hillary and Trump, guess what? In Virginia, it's too late. Some states close that window a lot earlier. Some states have it go a little bit longer, but Virginia is the state that has a pretty lenient amount of time, 22 days before the election. Look, if you didn't register to vote by then tough cookie. And yes, if you turn 18 on election day, you can still register to vote before you turn 18. So if anyone had that coming through their heads. So there are sociologists and political scientists who try to figure out voting trends. And they have a formula for who is most likely to vote in America. There are many reasons, but the top predictors of who is more likely to vote depends on these three things. One is education. The higher someone's education, the more likely they are to vote. Typically speaking, the more formally educated, so beyond high school and sometimes even beyond a 4-year university. If you have a graduate degree, a doctorate degree, you're more likely to vote than somebody who simply has a high school diploma. Another predictor is age. The older you are, the more likely you are to vote. So the largest voting category is our grandmas and grandpas. The lower your age, the least likely you are to vote. So every year, presidential candidates got to look at, the kids right out of high school, the colleges, and say, how do we get those kids excited? How do we get them to vote? And then the last predictor is income. The more wealthy someone is, the more likely they are to vote. And you can look at connections between these three and say, okay, obviously the older you are, maybe the more money you have because your kids are gone, you've done paying student loans for your kids, your house is paid off. You might say the higher education goes with wealthy because the higher education I have, maybe I have a better job, and that allows me to make more money, and that's why those two go hand in hand. And the politicians know this stuff. So they're always trying to target those people that fit into the opposite of these categories. So lower educated, younger, not as wealthy people are usually a large target of campaigns because those are the people less likely to vote. Grandma is going to vote no matter what. Millionaires are going to vote no matter what. People that are formally educated are going to vote no matter what. So how do we target those people that don't find the need to get up and vote? So why do citizens say they don't vote? Again, the predictors on the previous slide have a lot to do it, but sometimes education, age, and income aside, what are the barriers to voting? One, people just don't care. This can be for many reasons. What are some reasons you can think of why people don't care? I know this campaign particularly, this Trump versus Clinton, it's, well, I don't like either one of them, so I'm not going to vote, right? Again, that lack of interest. A failure to register. There are people that just do not register to vote in time. So you got to think, why would someone choose to not register to vote? Maybe they didn't know how. Maybe they lived in a poor community where they didn't have access. Maybe they lived in a rural community where the resources of a public library, the DMV, aren't nearby. They're not Virginia Beach that has, 9 public libraries. And then finally, a percentage of voters in the presidential election is way more than the people who vote in state and local elections. Why do you think this is? We'll learn by the end of this year that the state and local elections are actually more meaningful and play a more meaningful role in your everyday life than the presidential election. But are they as exciting? Are they as televised? Are they as prevalent on social media? Do we really know who's even running for the governor? Has it been overshadowed by the president? And the last thought of why people fail to vote is they do not think that their vote matters. How could we change that? Remember the electoral college system. Does every vote matter? How can citizens be made aware or made known that their voice matters? Some things to ponder. Make sure these notes are in your digital civics notebook. Make sure you're ready to finish up your campaigns next class. And have an awesome day. Thanks, guys.